kids. So today we are going to learn about the wonders of the living world. Okay, basically in this lesson we are going to learn about the environment that we live and its components and the features that it has. So we are going to basically learn about those, okay? So what is referred as environment? The surrounding including us is called as the environment. Also, when you talk about the environment, it includes the land that you live and the water bodies, houses, plants, animals, etc. Okay. Okay, when we talk about the components in the environment, we can mainly divide them into two things, that is as living things and non-living things. You know what you mean by the living things and you know what you mean by the non-living things. But we need to understand how did we categorize this under living things and the particular group as non-living things. Okay, we are going to learn it in the coming slides. For like at the moment you just keep in mind that it is the environment, the components in the environment is divided into two, as living things and the non-living things, and the living things are basically mainly divided into two, that is plants and animals. You already know what plants are now. For example, you can take coconut, jack, bamboo, papaya. And when you talk about the animals, deer, fish, parrot, snail, butterfly, all those come under the animals. And when you talk about the non-living things, you can take glass, bicycle, books, rock, pen, pencil, house, eraser, and everything comes under the non-living things. Okay, here we go. We are going to learn about what is living and what is non-living. The components that can grow are called the living things or the living organisms. Living organisms can be further classified into animals and plants. What do you mean by growth? Now, for example, you know, once you were a baby, once you were a baby, right? When you were small, you were very tiny, little, you had little hands and little legs, and now with the time you have grown, you have passed your grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have come to your grade 6, and you have increased in your size as well. Okay, so you have grown. So that is what you call the growth. Okay, so the living things have the ability to grow. And then when you talk about the non-living things, they do not have the ability to grow. Can you see, like if you take a pen, yeah, that is the same pen that will be there tomorrow as well, and that will be there after months as well. Okay, so the pen does not grow because it is a non-living thing. Okay, this is very interesting. Are there any other organisms that are living but not an animal or a plant? Now, basically, you know, living things are two types: animals and plants. And there is another organism, like there is a group of organisms which are living, but they are not they are not animals or they are not plants. Okay, so who are these? These are called the microorganisms. Okay, so we are going to do a simple experiment to see who these microorganisms are. The materials needed for this activity to do this experiment are: you need a pond water sample, you need a water rotted with hay, you need water rotted with hay, you need a compound microscope, you need slides and cover slips. So what we are going to do is we are going to take a sample from the water that is taken from the pond and the rotted hay, and then we are going to put it on the slide and cover the specimen with the cover slip and observe it, clip it under the on the stage of the microscope and observe it under the low power. Then you will be able to observe that there are very tiny organisms that are going here and there and they making some sort of a small movement. But when you look at this pond water, you was not able to see this, right? And the conclusion that you can come across is there are some organisms called as microorganisms which were not visible to our naked eye but are visible under the microscope. Okay, here comes the new living group that we are going to talk about, that is microorganisms. The organisms that are not visible to the naked eye are called as microorganisms. What do you mean by the naked eye? The unaided eye. Unaided eye means you are not wearing a spectacle, or you are not wearing a glass, or you are not wearing a lens. That is a unaided eye or a naked eye. Okay, and they can be observed clearly under the microscope. You can observe them under the microscope only. Okay, and then the compound microscope. What do you mean by this compound microscope? What is this microscope, right? It is an instrument which is used to observe the things that cannot be seen with the naked eye. When you try to see something with your normal eyes, you can't see it. But when you keep these specimens under the microscope and observe, you will be able to see this because of the lenses that this instrument has. Okay, and then a large number of microorganisms can be seen in air, water, soil and rotten food. Yes, these microorganisms are basically everywhere. Everywhere you can see microorganisms, but they are not visible to your naked eye. Okay, when we talk about the living organisms or the organisms, they have some sort of characteristics. Okay, that's how we are going to identify whether this is a living organism or not. Okay, so the first one is growth, and then nutrition, and then movement, the respiration and the reproduction. These are the 5 major characteristics of living organisms. So the first thing that we are going to talk is about the growth. Growth means increasing in size, height or the amount. Okay, and then the growth is a common feature for all the living organisms, kids, and then there is no growth in the non-living things, as I mentioned earlier. You can clearly observe the growth in stages if you plant some green gram seeds in a yogurt cup and observe its growth in weeks. Okay, so you can try this at home as well. Okay, when you talk about the nutrition, what do you mean by nutrition? Satisfying food requirements of organisms are called nutrition. You eat to get energy, you get nutrition by the food that you eat. Okay, there are 2 main types of nutrition we are discussing, that is autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. When you talk about autotrophic nutrition, that means these particular organisms have the ability to produce their own food. That means they produce their own food. For example, plants. We don't feed plants, they actually produce food by themselves. And heterotrophic nutrition means some of the organisms are depending on other organisms for its food. For example, lion, even human, us, we depend on the leaves, and we depend on vegetables, fruits and the meat, flesh, all that for our food. Okay, and the plants produce their own food from a process or by a process called as photosynthesis. Okay, so for this photosynthesis activity, they need carbon dioxide in the air, water in the soil and the sunlight. Okay, and when you talk about the animals anyway, they directly or indirectly depend on the plants for its food. Okay kids, here I have shown you a small picture which is showing you how the photosynthesis is taking place. So the smiling plant is obtaining the light energy from the sun. And what does it do? It takes carbon dioxide which is in the air and also the water which is in the soil, and there's a chemical reaction taking place within the plant, and they produce their own food. After producing their own food, they give out oxygen, and we use that oxygen for our breathing. Okay, kids, so movement is also another common feature to all the living organisms. So, movements are shown by both plants and animals, and a special type of movement, which is called as locomotion, happens when a whole organism is moving from one place to another. Okay, so this can be done mostly by the animals. The plants can't do it, but the plants show movements. Okay, for examples, if we take about the mimosa plant, when we touch it, it shows movement by showing the leaves. The leaves, they sleep, and even the Kataramurunga and tamarind leaves, they sleep in the evening. But when you talk about the animals, they show locomotion, and they have appendages or limbs for their locomotory function. And then when you talk about the different types of locomotions that you can see, like swimming, flying, so these are the ways how the animals show locomotion. Also, guys, there is another movement which is shown by plants, but that is not detectable, because this movement does not happen within a short period of time. It takes some time for the movement. For example, if you take a plant and place it near a window, it is with time, it is getting bent, like the stem is bending towards the light. Okay. Okay, kids, so you can see some of the movements that animals do, like the frog is hopping, and the crab usually crawls, starfish jumps, bunny hops. These are like very small cartoon locomotions. Okay, so now, as I said, you can see when there is light, the plant bends towards the light. Okay, and I have shown you how the mimosa leaves sleep when they are touched. And also you have to keep in mind the non-living or non-living things, they do not move. If they want to be moved, you need to provide an external force for them to move. Okay, kids, what is respiration? Respiration is breathing oxygen in the air, reacting with the stored food inside the body and producing energy that the body needs. Okay, so that is we respire. What do you mean by respiration? We inhale and we exhale. Inhalation, in the sense we take inside, we breathe in oxygen that is given out by the plants, and we put out carbon dioxide from exhalation. When we take in oxygen, the oxygen is going to react with the food that is stored in our body. Okay, so with a chemical reaction, what happens? The food that is stored in the body reacts with oxygen and produce energy that is needed by the body functions, needed to do the body functions. Okay, so that is the important thing in the respiration. And when you talk about respiration, you can see when we are inhaling and exhaling, our body, the chest, is moving up and up and down, right? So these movements, you call them as respiratory movements. And can you see these respiratory movements in plants? No, you can't see them in plants, because the plants does not show respiratory movements, but the plants respire, but you can't see it. Okay, now how do you know that the carbon dioxide is the gas that is evolved when we exhale? So we are going to do a small activity to test whether it is carbon dioxide which we exhale. Okay, so the materials that you need for this is, you need a straw, you need a test tube, you need colorless calcium hydroxide solution. The procedure or the method that we are going to do is, you have to take some colorless calcium hydroxide into a test tube. Okay, it will be like a liquid. Okay, then what you have to do is, you have to bubble the exhaled air into the test tube using a straw. Okay, so and make sure that this calcium hydroxide does not come to your mouth, okay? And then what happen is you will observe that the colorless calcium hydroxide will change its color to an off milky white solution, right? So here there we can get a conclusion that the exhaled air the exhaled air contains carbon dioxide, okay? Because of a chemical reaction that is taking place with carbon dioxide and calcium hydroxide only, the milky color was occurred, okay? Basically the formation of calcium carbonate. Right. Okay, what is reproduction? A matured living being producing new members of the same species is known as reproduction. Okay, and this is helping the continuation and the existence of the living world, which is essential to have a new generation. That means you have to keep in mind that if for your generation to be continued, you need another person to like continue your generation, right? So that's why your mother is giving rise to you, and one day if she's a girl, she's giving rise to another baby. Just like that, the generation continues, so the existence of the living species take place, right? So this is common for all the living organisms. Now in the given picture you can see there was an egg, and the egg has been given rise to a chick, and the chick will become a hen or a cock, okay? And you can see the babies of the different animals here. Okay, so we are going to learn about the diversity of plants. What do you mean by diversity? Diversity is the variation, okay? So when you talk about the plants, plants can be divided or categorized according to different features that it has, okay? So plants can be divided or separated based on the morphological features. What do you mean by morphological features? The features that we can see, right? The observable features. For example, like the root, according to the root system, some of them are having, actually morphological means structural features, okay? So the roots, when you talk about the roots, some are having tap roots, some are having fibrous roots, okay? If you take tap roots, jackfruit has the taproot system, and if you take fibrous roots, the grass is having fibrous roots, okay? And according to the stems, there are some of them are having different branched stems, some of them are having non-branched stems, okay? So just like that, according to the stem also we can divide them. And according to the type of leaves, some are having compound leaves, some are having simple leaves, and according to the flower types, okay? So just like that, according to the seeds, according to the fruits, we can divide these plants according to the morphological or the anatomical features we can see in these plants. And again, we can divide these plants based on the living environment, according to the environment where these plants live. For example, some live in the terrestrial environment, some are aquatic plants, some are mangrove plants, and some are living in the coastal areas. So just like that, based on this the living environment also, they can classify the plants. And based on the nature of the plants, like whether they are shrubs, whether they are trees, creepers, bushes, just like that, based on the nature of the plant also, we can divide them. So just like the plants, the animals are also having a wide diversity, okay? So the animals can be divided based on their living, based on the environment where they live. Some of them are terrestrial, okay? For example, the monkeys, tigers, lions, and all of that. And some of them are aquatic, where they swim in the aquatic environments in the water, right? And some of them are air, basically the birds, they live in the air, right? And some of the insects. So just like that, they can be divided based on, they can be classified based on the living place or the habitat, and based on the feeding mechanisms, Based on the feeding mechanism, some of them chew, some of them swallow without chewing even, some of them chew and suck. Just like that, according to the way they feed, we can divide the animals, or we can classify the animals. And according to the type of food they eat, like carnivores, omnivores, or herbivores. Carnivores are the animals that are feeding on the flesh of the other animals, and omnivores who's eating the flesh of other animals, or as well as they take plant matter as well, right? And then the herbivores take only plant matter as their food. So another thing is based on their external characteristics. What do you mean by the external characteristics? So according to the color they have, and according to the shape this animal possess, and according to the appendages, with whether how many appendages they have, 4, 2, or many. So just like that, we can divide these animals into different categories. And also based on the mode of locomotion, some are walking just like us, and some of them are swimming like the fish, and some of them are flying like birds, creeping like snakes and all that. So just like that, we can classify these animals into different categories. Okay, now we need to understand what are the differences between the plants and the animals. There are so many differences between the plants and animals, but I have given you all, and I have included what is given in your textbook, so that is easier for you all to refer for your exams. Okay, so when you talk about the plants grow fixed to the ground, and they do not show locomotion, but they show movements. I explained to you this before as well. Animals, they have the ability to move from one place to another place, which is mean by locomotion. So animals show locomotion, where the plants does not show locomotion. Okay, so the plants, they grow at the place where they are fixed. Okay, and then the other characteristic is they produce their own food. The plants produce their own food by a process called as photosynthesis, as we discussed earlier. Therefore, we call them as autotrophs. But when you talk about the animals, they don't have the ability to produce their own food. Instead, they depend on the other animals and plants for their food. Therefore, we call them as heterotrophic organisms. And when you talk about the plants have a special thing called as chlorophyll in their plant cells. Okay, so what happens is the chlorophyll which is in their plants make them easier. Those are the sites where this photosynthesis is taking place. Okay, since they are autotrophic organisms, they have this chlorophyll which is helping them. It is a pigment. Okay, pigment which is helping them to produce their own food. And since the animals does not do photosynthesis, they do not have chlorophyll, right? And the growth is visible during the entire lifespan. Thus the growth is unlimited. Okay, this is important, because when you talk about the plants have the ability to grow throughout their whole lifespan. Okay, till they die, they grow. Therefore, their growth is unlimited. But when you talk about the animals, their growth is limited. They grow, and they grow to a limited range of time period, and they stop growing at a certain period of time. Okay, so the animals, they have an unlimited growth. Okay, so the final thing we are going to talk is about the dichotomous key. Dichotomous key is a categorization. They categorizes the organisms using the presence or the absence of particular characteristics. Okay, so that is called a dichotomous key. I have given you the introduction, not the introduction, the definition for the dichotomous key here, which is given in your textbooks, so that you should refer. And then the dichotomous key uses external features that can be easily observed. Okay, so here now I have given the dichotomous key for the vertebrates. Now if you go through about this example, now you can see there are animals which have fur, okay, and there are animals which do not have the fur. So we have given the features that is present and we have given the feature that is absent. So the animals which are having fur are called as the mammals. The animals that does not have fur are the other four categories, which are birds, reptiles, fish and amphibians. Okay, so the ones which are not having fur are again we have categorized into two, as the animals who are having feathers and the animals who are having no feathers, right? The animals who are having feathers are the birds, and the animals who do not have feathers are the reptiles, fish and amphibians. So the animals who do not have feathers are categorized again into two, as dry skinned ones and the moist skinned ones. So you know already the dry skinned ones are the reptiles which are having scales, right? And the moist skinned ones are two, that is fish and the amphibians. So in the fish and the amphibians are also categorized into two, the ones who are having scales and the ones who are not having scales. You know fish is already having scales, and amphibians, they do not have scales, they have a moist skin with glands. Okay, so this is a simple example for your dichotomous key. Okay, that brings to the end of this lesson, and hope you guys understood the lesson. And if you have any questions, please post them or put them under the comments. And hope to see y'all in the next video. Please subscribe Sham School for more videos related to our lessons, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you guys. We'll see you in the next video.